Start talking. Okay. I think we're going. It always takes Facebook a second to figure itself out, and then I never know if it's actually going. Okay, we're going. All right. Hello, and welcome to today's video, where I'm going to be talking about what to do when you can't get your needs met. Because, of course, I talk a lot on this path about how we learn to identify our needs and how we learn to identify the needs under our coping mechanisms and under our self-sabotaging behavior and under our addictions, and how we learn to identify our needs within relationships so that we can be better communicators of what we need, and so that we can move out of codependent kind of relying on subconscious programming from our childhoods and all these things in getting our needs met, that we maybe don't even have a conscious awareness of what it is that we want and what we need. We just know that we need to, like, we feel this desire to act in certain ways, or to manipulate ourselves in certain ways, or to manipulate others in certain ways, and we feel uneasy or scared or anxious or not okay when we're not doing those things, and we're like, why am I doing this? Why am I being this way? And it's like, yes, you have needs that you feel that you can only get met from the outside, and this is how you learn to meet them, through this kind of behavior modification of yourself or behavior modification of others. And that's how you know to feel safe. That's how you know to, like I say, get your needs met. And like I said, and then also learning how to meet your needs yourself in a lot of ways, when we can feel so dependent upon others, when we can feel really dependent upon culture, we can feel really dependent upon ourselves to behave in a certain way so that we are accepted, so that we are loved, so that we are included in the group, and therefore will get our needs met. Because remember too that, like, fundamentally the feeling of being loved and the feeling of being accepted and a feeling of being a part of a group is considered a basic need. Okay, so and I do believe that that comes from the very real two experiences that we've had as human beings. Being, number one, being loved and approved of and accepted by caregivers in our infancy and in our childhood was how we survived, right? Because we could not meet our own needs. And being loved and accepted and approved of by our caregivers and by the kind of greater group of people that took care of us as children, we survived. It was a survival mechanism. It was a survival connection, that being a part of the group, being loved, being accepted, equaled getting our needs met, and therefore surviving. And also, all throughout human history, it was essentially, up until very, very recently, impossible to survive by yourself, right? If you got kicked out of the group that you were in, if you got kicked out of the community you were in, if you were ostracized, if you were rejected, you had a much harder time meeting your own needs. Because as much as we celebrate individuality and sovereignty, especially now in the New Age spiritual community, we have always been and will always be a collective. And, right, like, nobody I know is growing all their own food, manufacturing everything that they, like, right, taking from nature everything they use to build their home, and then they built their home by themselves, and then they invented their own internet, or, like, they live fully off grid and completely generate all of their own power and are fully and completely self-sufficient. And even if they are that way, they are relying on the information from everyone who came before them, who discovered how to do those things in order to do those things, right? So we are always going to be interdependent. We are always going to be a collective. Even if it feels like we're very isolated and we live a very isolated life and it doesn't feel like we interact with a lot of people, we go to the grocery store, we use internet, we use technology, we live in a house, all of these things we didn't build ourselves, right? I don't personally run the internet. I don't know how that works. I don't know how my computer works. I am dependent upon the collective to do my job. So even though I'm not necessarily interacting with another human being directly in order to get my internet and in order to put out a video every week, I am relying upon the collective all the people who knew things and understood things and built technologies and all these things who came before me. So you see what I'm saying? Like, I don't grow my own food. I go to the grocery store. So many people are involved in nourishing me, technically, if I'm really being honest, right? Like, we are all a part of the collective. So this idea and this feeling that we have of, if I get kicked out of the tribe, if I'm totally rejected, if I'm not a part of the group, I'm not safe, is a reality. You see? Like, we can't survive on our own. But at the same time, we do have to kind of recognize that, especially nowadays, we can be socially ostracized, we can be not accepted by people, and generally speaking, unless we're to the point where, you know, there are very, very real systems in place that ostracize and reject groups of people, and because of that, those people do not have basic fundamental rights, they don't have access, they don't have the same safety capacity, or not capacity, ability as everyone else, because society is set up in a way, but we can talk about that later. But you see what I'm saying, is that ultimately, that need to feel connected, that need to feel a part of the group, is coming from the understanding that independent survival is impossible, and that we are always going to be, on some level, dependent upon others to get our needs met. Okay? And that's one of those things that can seem very paradoxical on the self-love path, where I'm telling you all the time, you know, learn to meet your own needs, learn to be on your own side, learn to be there and a provider for yourself. It can sound like I'm telling you that you need to become fully self-sufficient, right? We can get this kind of black and white thinking, and that's not reality, and that's never going to be reality. The point of learning to meet your own needs, the point of learning to even like understand what you need, to come into an awareness of what your needs are and how to get them met in a healthier way, is to empower yourself. It is not to say now you are to become fully independent. You see? Like, when you understand what your needs are, this means that when you're in a relationship, you can communicate those needs instead of, like I say, relying on codependent behaviors of programs of, if I behave this way, you're supposed to behave this way, and then we both somehow get our needs met that we're not really aware of. We just know that when you don't act this way, or when I don't act this way, one of us is very upset, and we don't really know why. You see? Like, we want to come into awareness of, like, oh, okay, I see why I'm doing this. I see why I behave this way in order to get you to behave this way. It's because I want this from you. And it's because when you don't do this for me, I don't feel as good. And then we can start to say, okay, well, is that healthy? Can I meet that need on my own? Can we be more consent-based with getting those needs met for both of us, rather than manipulation-based? Can we bring it more into the light of consciousness versus having it be in the shadow of subconscious? We can be more empowered with just in all ways, essentially. When we're learning what our own needs are, we start to feel a lot less desperate and a lot less afraid and a lot less disempowered in our lives, because that awareness makes it so that, because there's always going to be that feeling underneath of a desire and of a need, right? We can never numb that out. We can never get rid of that. And when we have a need and it's not being met, we are going to have pain. Okay, so this is why learning to meet your own needs is such an empowering thing, because it helps us to understand, okay, I'm feeling pain. I'm feeling a desire. I'm feeling a discomfort. I'm engaging in behaviors that I don't know why I'm engaging in them. We can all say, okay, there's a need here somewhere that's either not being met, or it's being met in a way that sort of meets the need, but then at the same time, there's chaos involved. It's not as mature a way as I could meet this need. I could meet this need in a more mature way, in a more connected to reality way. And so there can be less collateral damage in the process of the need being met. And I use in my mystery school a metaphor of a lot of us, we kind of grow up, right, not knowing how to identify what our needs are and being shamed for the needs that we have. And then thinking that we're going to grow up to be high functioning, high happiness adults when we are literally working to pretend that we don't have needs that we have, which are always going to cause pain. It's always going to cause pain, right? So we have to understand this. You're never going to get rid of a need. And so long as you have a need that's not being met, you are going to have pain. And if we don't, like as human beings, we don't like being in pain. Let's just be honest about that, right? Like human beings don't like being in pain. We're going to do whatever it takes most of the time to make that pain go away, to fix it, to change it, to numb it out, to distract ourselves from it, because we don't want to be in pain. So enter Western culture that provides us with a million ways to numb out and distract ourselves and scapegoat and focus on all of these things that don't matter so that we are not focusing on any of the things that do matter. And we can convince ourselves that what we're doing is giving us less pain and all of these things because we're distracted, because we get stimulated for a while, because all of these reasons, yes. But so long as we have a need that's not being met, so long as we have a need that's not being met, we're going to be in pain. And so long as we're scapegoating, numbing, distracting ourselves, we're going to stay in pain because the need doesn't go anywhere. So like I say, the metaphor that I give in the mystery school is that all of us have a need for vitamin C. But we are raised in a culture that has told us that it's wrong and bad to need vitamin C. Or we're raised in a culture that doesn't even understand that vitamin C could be a need. So, and then the metaphor that I use is that vitamin C rich foods like oranges and lemons are considered garbage. We just throw them in the garbage. So all of us have this insatiable need for vitamin C, and we don't have anything in our diets that give us vitamin C because the vitamin C containing fruits and vegetables, we throw them away. We see them as poison. We've labeled them as bad. Like this is kind of how our culture is, okay? And so what we're doing then is we're starting to develop the signs and symptoms of scurvy, right? Our gums are rotting, are all inflamed. We are chronically ill. Our immune systems are depressed. Our skin is sagging, and we have poor wound healing, and all of these things. We have vitamin C deficiency. And we look at the pain that we're in, and we go, oh, there's something wrong with me. I'm ugly. I'm weak. I'm not good enough because I'm having these symptoms. That's one way. Or we look at ourselves and we say, I'm in pain. I want to do whatever it takes to get out of this pain. So I'm going to take medication. I'm going to drink. I'm going to take drugs. I'm going to distract myself with high adrenaline sports, whatever it is, because I don't want to feel this pain. And then we ride this wave of just numbing and distracting or stimulating and then coming back into our symptoms, and then numbing and distracting and stimulating and then coming back into our symptoms and all of these things. Some of us have realized that when we eat oranges and lemons, our symptoms decrease a little bit. So there's some of us that have gone rogue and are eating those garbage foods. But the only way to get the garbage foods, the oranges and the lemons that society throws away and says are bad and wrong, we shouldn't eat those, is to eat them out of the garbage. And so we're eating oranges and lemons, and it's helping us feel better. But because we're getting them out of the garbage, they're covered in bacteria. They're covered in germs. So the oranges help to sort of make the symptoms better. But at the same time, they give us a stomachache. And we kind of get sick every once in a while. And there's negative backlash. So it sort of looks like we're weird, gross garbage eaters. You see what I'm saying? Society looks at us and is like, ew, what are you doing? You're eating food out of the trash. You're making yourself sick. Stop it. And we think, oh my gosh, I'm like addicted to eating shit out of the garbage. I'm so gross. What's wrong with me? The rest of society is getting on fine, right? Like, yeah, everyone has these symptoms, but look, they're on medication. They're doing their like sports. They're numbing. They're distracting. Everyone else seems to be fine. What's wrong with me that I have to keep eating this garbage food? And then we think we have an addiction. Like, I've got an addiction to garbage food, and I need to go to like Garbage Eaters Anonymous because I'm broken. There's something really wrong with me. But the thing is, if you were to actually just stop, right, because that would be what the addiction people tell you to do, you need to just stop eating that stuff. You need to just stop. You need to just stop. You need to overpower it. You need to will yourself to not do that anymore because that's bad. Okay, so you stop doing it, and then what happens? Do you just magically feel better and everything's great? No. You have scurvy. All your symptoms of scurvy come back. So you may not have the, bacteria from the garbage, but now you have scurvy, right? It didn't heal you. It didn't make you better. You were meeting a need via eating the oranges and the lemons out of the garbage. So then what actually needs to happen there is we need to say, okay, well, these symptoms of scurvy are real. It means I'm not getting a need met somewhere. And I have to acknowledge that although I do get a little bit sick from the bacteria and shit that's all over the garbage food I'm eating, it also makes it better a little bit. And when I don't eat the garbage food, symptoms come back. Therefore, there's some positive benefit. So how can we tease apart what's actually harmful about eating foods out of the garbage and what's helpful? And then that's when we can discover, we can pick apart, like, okay, it's the fact that the oranges and the lemons are in the garbage that are making them poisonous for me. So if I just stopped throwing them in the garbage, instead just took oranges and lemons and ate them outright, now I'm getting the nourishment that I need. I get rid of my scurvy, and I don't have the problem of eating garbage food. And then I don't have to numb and distract and do all these things like everyone else. And then I also don't have to, distract myself, take medication, all these things to try to live with scurvy. Right? Like, this is kind of how we have to think of it, because our society, technically speaking, is still very primitive in its understanding of how human beings are and what we need and what is actually required for us to thrive and survive in a way where we feel good, right? So a lot of us have a lot of pain. Like, this is just the way it is, because the way society is set up, the way cultures are set up, are not supportive of human beings. So that brings us to what do we do when we start to discover what our needs are and we can't actually meet them? And I kind of want to address this from 2 points, from 2 positions. So the first position is, a lot of people still come to me and say, okay, I'm doing my self-love work. I'm trying to ask myself what I really need when I'm numbing out, or when I'm scapegoating, or when I can see that I'm in pain. I can see that my body is sick. I can see that I have anxiety. I can see I have depression. I have all these things, and I'm trying to ask myself, okay, so this isn't a deficiency in me. This isn't something wrong with me. This is a need not being met. This is something is missing, and I'm in pain because of it. But I don't know what it is. I don't know what I need. I don't know what my body needs to heal. I don't know what my next steps are. I don't know why I have this anxiety. I don't know why I have this depression. So I want to address what do we do when we can't get our needs met, because we still don't know what it is. We still don't know what we need. I'm going to talk about that. And I'm also going to talk about when we do know what we need, when we are aware, we have figured it out to the degree that we can in the moment, but we don't actually have access to the thing that we need. We are not able to right now figure out how to get what we actually want, or what we need, or what we want, or what we need isn't available, because that's a reality, right? Like, I don't want to pretend like all of us live in a world where we have access to everything we need, and as long as we just discover what that is, we can have it. because that's not true. Okay? All of us have and are in situations to lesser and greater extent where what we want and what we need to thrive is simply not available. Okay? Because for multiple reasons. Yeah? For the reason of society, the way society is set up and structured to systematically undermine certain groups of people so that they don't get their needs met, so that they are continually dependent upon the system to destroy them essentially as batteries for the system. And also because life is complicated and complex, and needs are complicated and complex, and there's absolutely no rule in nature that says because something was born, it's going to get what it needs, right? Like, if we go out and look at just nature itself with no human interaction, not everything survives. In fact, most things don't. Most things die. Most things die young. It's a tragic reality of the natural world, is that the most common thing in life is death because life is so complex and it's just difficult, right? So as humans, we have figured a lot of things out. We have come to a high understanding of ourselves. We have come to a high understanding of how to collect and distribute and utilize resources to meet our needs. And there's still a lot of stuff we don't know. There's still a lot of stuff we just don't understand yet. And so there is a real reality of times and places where what we want just isn't available. What we need maybe isn't even known. So what do we do in those situations? So let's go to the first situation, right? What do we do when we have pain and we don't know what the need is? Okay, so all of us are going to, on our self-love path, have multiple times where we know we have coping, we have numbing, we have addictive behaviors, we have ways that we're sabotaging ourselves and we're seemingly not able to do the normal thing, or we're not able to, go along with how society is. We're not able to kind of like figure our shit out and figure ourselves out, and all these things where we have stuff going on in our bodies, stuff going on with our anxieties, depression, our mental state, and in our relationships where we simply are like, I'm trying really hard to like be here for myself. I'm trying to support myself. I'm really showing up, and I'm not telling myself I'm wrong. I'm not telling myself I'm bad. I'm here. I'm trying to be loving and compassionate with myself, and I can't. It's just hard. Or I panic, like right when I feel the pain of my body, when I feel the pain of my anxiety, when my mind just goes on this whole roller coaster ride of, if you don't figure this out, all of these things are going to fall apart, and you're never going to be okay, and you're never going to have safety, and you're never going to heal, and you're never going to have love, and you don't know what you want, and you don't know where you're supposed to be, and oh my God, you're so old, it's too late. That's going to happen. Okay? So first things first. Just know, right, when we're in pain, it is so normal to panic, to have your mind go into fix-it mode or shut-down mode, right? To have your body freak out, to just want to go into your patterns, and I'm just going to go on this diet, I'm just going to do this thing, I'm just going to, right? Like, this is normal. This is going to happen. And so the first step is always, we just come back to that compassion for ourselves. And I know I am a broken record, okay? I know that in the moment, compassion for yourself, you're just gonna be like, that is not the answer. Stop freaking telling me to do that. That doesn't make me feel better. That doesn't solve it. I'm still in pain. I still have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing. I still have no idea what my need is. I'm still coping. I'm still numbing. I'm still sabotaging. I'm still ruining my life. I'm not getting any younger. Stop freaking telling me to have compassion and curiosity for myself because it's not working. Okay, I hear you. Completely. Valid. 100%. I see you. That's normal. That's going to happen. That's valid. I see you. Okay? I get it. Yeah. And the degrees to which we have been conditioned to not be able to understand our own needs, to not be able to be with ourselves with compassion when we're in pain, the degree to which we have been indoctrinated to not see our own needs and to repress our own needs and to blame ourselves and shame ourselves and scapegoat onto other things when we're in pain is something that most of us will spend the rest of our lives like coming to terms with. It's so automatic and it's so ingrained in our nervous systems that pain equals panic, and we reject ourselves, or we freak out, or we don't feel like we have agency. A lot of us, okay, and I really want to make this clear too, a lot of us have never seen, either in ourselves or others, actual progress from pain. What I'm telling you is a legend at this point. That we can discover what we need, that we can get that need met, and then life can just be better after that. That we can literally just not have that pain anymore because we understood something and we actually remedied the situation so that pain doesn't exist anymore and therefore those behaviors don't have to exist anymore. Most of us have never seen that happen. Most of us have never seen another human being actually do that. Right? We've only ever seen people coping and coping and coping for the rest of their lives, managing and managing and managing, things getting incrementally worse, or people like riding that wave of like, oh, it's better, oh, it's worse, oh, it's better, oh, it's worse, oh, it's better, oh, it's worse. Right? We've never seen someone be like, yeah, that was a thing I used to have. I figured out what it was, and I don't have that anymore. Like, legitimately, I just don't have that anymore. I'm not fighting that demon anymore. I don't have that pain anymore. So we have to be honest with ourselves, right? That most of us have never seen true problem solving before. Most of us have never really experienced true problem solving. We have no reason to believe that what I'm saying is possible. So we have to have compassion for that. We have to have compassion. That of course we don't want to sit with our pain. Of course we don't want to do the process of learning to make our nervous system safe enough, to reveal something to ourselves that we may never have even seen before. Because this is the other thing. For a lot of us, discovering our needs, discovering what we want, discovering what's wrong and what we actually... It's learning something we've never known before. It's stepping into the unknown. Discovering something we don't already know. And most of us, again, have a subconscious belief that if I don't already know it, or if someone doesn't tell me, I can't know it. So if you're telling me I have to figure out this thing on my own, without someone telling me, without some coach or some guide or someone giving me the answer, and without me remembering because I already knew, you're telling me I have to like learn something new about myself by myself? Right? That also probably sounds like, well, that's impossible. How is that possible? How could I possibly learn something about myself that I don't already know? Right? Most of us are going to feel like that's never happened before. How am I supposed to do that? Because we weren't trained, again, on how to do that. We weren't trained on how to say, okay, I'm in pain. What's going on? And then again, we've been trained that culture and the way that we live is the right way. So if we're not thriving in that, there's something wrong with us. We weren't trained to say, okay, well, if culture and the way that I'm living isn't making me feel good, it's culture. It's the way I'm living that needs to change, not me, right? Most of us have well, there's something wrong with me. I'm broken. It's my broken brain, my broken body, my broken mentality. I can't work hard enough. I can't work correctly. My brain doesn't work right. I need to fix myself. And then the entire self-help world is like, yes, that's absolutely correct. Here, millions of things for you to buy to make me very rich. Right? The consumerist market loves it when you think there's something wrong with you when you're in pain. Everywhere you look and everywhere you go, every message, from the fashion industry to the diet industry to the self-help industry to the spirituality industry to the abundance mentality industry at this point, to secular media, to new age media, it doesn't matter where you look. Everyone is saying the same shit. You're right. Your pain means there's something wrong with you. And you need to fix that thing about you. And don't worry, I will sell you that product that will help you fix that thing about you. Right? None of us are getting the message of, you're in pain. Okay, let's figure out what you need. Let's figure out what's not working for you. Let's figure out why you have to numb and cope and scapegoat in order to get through your day. Maybe it's the way society's set up. Maybe it's the way you've been trained to think about yourself. Maybe it's the career you think you have to have but you don't actually want. Maybe it's everything you think you have to do to fit into culture. That means that you can't be your real self. Maybe it's the fact that literally, the way you've been trained to be in relationships, what a normal and good relationship is, isn't for you, isn't healthy. Right? Like even just the binary masculine feminine thing. That doesn't work for most people. That was very handy when survival was the point and we needed the woman to make babies and the men to gather resources. But we don't live in that world anymore. That's not going to be true to most of us. But we've made it that that's the standard. So then we wonder why so many of us feel so suppressed and not happy and unfulfilled. And we've been trained that this is the way the feminine is supposed to act, and this is the way the masculine is supposed to act. And then there's all this trauma on both sides because that doesn't acknowledge people. That doesn't acknowledge individuality. That doesn't acknowledge that we are all different and that we are all here to express in different ways and get our needs met in different ways and here to relate in different ways. And there just isn't a wrong way to do it, so long as there's consent, so long as everyone's agreeing to be playing. There's so much, this is how it has to be, and this is what success is, and this is what is normal, that a lot of us, when we do start to get curious about ourselves, when we do start to get curious about what we need and what's going to work for us, it's horrifying because it means we go, well, I don't fit into culture at all. I'm not normal in any way. The thing I need and the thing I want is totally anti-everything. And then everyone freaks out when we do that because it challenges their security. Because again, we are finding our security in the idea that culture generally has it right. And culture can be whatever it is that we've connected ourselves to. So you might not identify as being a part of the mainstream culture, right? You're not the Kim Kardashian type. You're not worrying about your makeup. You're not worrying about all that fashion, whatever. But you're now worrying about fitting into the fruitarian community. You're worrying about fitting into the alternative community, into the spiritual community. And are you using the right terms? Are you using the right body language? Are you dressing the right way? Are you doing the right? We're all still searching for that group that has it figured out that's right so that we can be safe if we just follow all the rules. And what I'm saying is that's never going to work for any of us. Because there isn't just a set of rules that we can follow and then have security forever. So a lot of us, like I say, when we really start to discover what we want and what we need, it's yeah, okay, well, I live in a culture that tells me that oranges and lemons are garbage. And I'm learning that those are required nutrients for me. So I have 3 choices. I can continue to deny myself and try to fit into culture and try to just live with scurvy. I can keep eating the lemons and the oranges out of the garbage secretly and getting sick from it, but at least sort of getting my needs met, but then being viewed as an addict or like something wrong with me, like society. Or I can figure out a healthy way of getting oranges and lemons and then just being judged by culture. And for a lot of us, it's just going to be a shit sandwich. It's like, which shit sandwich do we want to eat? Because it's like, that's the way culture is. So in that process of I don't know what I need, I don't know why I feel this way, I'm still struggling to meet my own needs, I'm still struggling to figure out what my needs even are, especially with our bodies, okay? Because I know that especially when we're in our bodies, we just get in our loops. We're just really anything. Like that thing that's our pain point, our relationship, our finances, our job, our body. One of those four, a combination thereof. We're gonna have just cyclical, repetitive, panic, I don't know what to do, here's what I think I should do, we do that thing, it doesn't really work, right? We're gonna have our crazy 8 cycle, as Tony Robbins says. And it's just a matter of understanding that this compassion that I'm asking you to have and this curiosity I'm asking you to have, for most of us, it's going to be a long process. And you're gonna discover what you need little by little by little by little by little. Okay? So like again, when I was 14 and I was super, 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 super sick, the first thing that I did that took me from where I was to my first step out of that was mixing some chocolate protein powder into some orange juice. And now I know that was probably like the worst thing I possibly could have done for what was actually going on with my body. But it was the first step towards empowering myself, that nutrition made a difference, that I had some agency over my body. Medicine had failed me, my parents had failed me, I was all alone. It was either I was going to figure this out or I was going to die. And the journey of 15 years, right? Even 7 years ago, 5 years ago, I was struggling with things that I don't struggle with now. I had made so much progress, and yet there were still a lot of things I had no idea about. So what we need to understand is that when we're in pain, we're not going to get an answer. It's not going to be a thing. We have to be willing to say, okay, this is going to be a process. This is going to be a journey. And we're just going to get little glimpses, little steps, little things to do that seem completely insignificant, that seem like it couldn't make a big difference, that seem like they are a mistake because they make things worse a little bit. But we need to just shift into that, like, okay, this is going to be a learning process of learning over time what my needs are, learning over time how to get them met through trial and error, through just taking a step, seeing what happens, and learning from that. Did it make it worse? Why? Did it make it better? Why? Okay, now from there, what's my next step? Did it make it worse? Why? Did it make it better? Why? And we just continue to build through that. There's nothing wrong with me. We just keep showing up with that compassion. And so when in doubt, when we don't know what to do, when we're super scared and freaking out, you just keep working that compassion and that curiosity muscle. It's like going to the gym. You just have to do it every day. It just needs to be the new thing that you do now. This is who you are now. You show up with love and compassion. And you have to understand and be ready for the fact that you're going to have resistance. There are going to be parts of you that you just work for like 2 years to ever be able to even get to that place where you can be curious about it. Because the resistance to being curious, the fear that if I'm nice to this part of myself, it's going to overtake my whole life and destroy me, the fear that this part is just bad and I can't love it, and if I love it, right, it will take over and ruin my life, that stuff is going to be strong. This is not easy. So to just make it very clear that the step is simple. Curiosity. What's going on with me? Just what is this feeling trying to tell me? I'm just going to be here with myself. I'm not going to judge myself just for 2 minutes. Just for 1 minute, just for 30 seconds. I'm going to have compassion for myself. I see you. I'm so sorry. We work on making our nervous system safe. Over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So long as you don't know what you need, you know your next step. It's compassion and curiosity. And it won't work until it works. You have to just work it and work it and work it. And then expect that the information you get is not going to be the whole staircase. It's not going to be the whole answer. It's not going to be the solution. It's not going to be the thing that takes you from pain to pleasure forever. It's going to be a little step, and you're going to learn from it. And then you'll take the next step, and then you'll learn from it. And this is how you learn to become an empowered problem solver. You will show yourself that learning things about yourself that you didn't know before and that no one has to tell you is possible. You will show yourself that progress is possible and that you feel better with progress, that you don't need to get to the finish line before you will have more joy, before you will have more freedom, before you will have more of your need being met. It's not about transcendence. It's not about the goal. It's not about the finish line. It's not about the end. It's about taking the steps. And everything just gets a little bit better. And you will learn how life actually works, which is phases of growth and evolution. There's no grand awakening. There's no transformation moment. There can be moments where we like flip a switch and we get something, and then this is a new way that we live now. But then the transformation is the fact that we keep living that way. It's not that moment your whole life changes. It's that moment where your trajectory changes. But it's the fact that you then carry that out over and over and over again that makes the difference. It's the continued action, the continued pattern. It's not the moment that changes your life. The moment shifts your direction. Yes? Okay. So that's the first thing. If you don't know, keep returning to compassion and curiosity and really dramatically reduce your expectation of what your next step is, of what the answer is you're going to get. Let it be infinitesimal and trust that little bit of guidance that you get and follow it and learn from it. So don't expect that every guidance you get is going to be the answer that's awesome. Sometimes every guidance that you get will be, whoa, that really made it worse. But that's good because that's information. So we look at everything as information, everything as a step. We dramatically reduce our expectation of what our steps are going to be and what the results are going to be. And we understand that over time, continuing to show up like this, we go very far. Okay? Second, when we discover a need, and then we know we actually can't meet it. For instance, we need something for our bodies we literally don't have access to. We can't afford it, it's not around. We know something would really help, we can't get it. We know we would really benefit from some therapy or some one-on-one interaction, someone to help us work through our trauma. And we can't, we don't have access. We know we would benefit from, we really want, physical contact from somebody else. That's a human need. And there's no one around. We want something in society. That's literally not available. What do we do when we discover the reason we're in pain is because we're lacking something we don't have access to? Okay, number one is, we guessed it, compassion. Because the mind is going to freak out. We're going to panic. We're going to panic, or we're going to go into desperation and hopelessness, and that is normal. We need to get really, really good at validating ourselves and letting ourselves be upset. Okay? Don't try to force yourself to not be upset about it. Don't try to force yourself to rise above. Don't try to force yourself to look for the positive right now. Right? I know that the New Age community tells us if we go into desperation, if we go into upset, if we go into being mad about all these things, the universe won't give it to us. We won't be manifesting it anymore. We will be the reason it never happens. We have to stay positive, and we have to, pretend we don't want it or pretend we don't need it, so that we manipulate the universe into tricking it into somehow giving it to us because we pretended we played hard to get or something, right? Like, well, I don't know what the New Age community is thinking they're doing there, but there's all these rules that we've been told that if we're not getting what we want or what we need, we have to go into some positive, detached, neutral position as some way of, like I said, weirdly manipulating the daddy in the sky to give you what you want or what you need. And that's not reality. Okay? That's not why you don't have what you need. You don't not have what you need because the universe is like, oh, your emotional state and your mental state aren't the right ones, and so I'm going to withhold this thing from you until you figure out how you need to act. What does that sound like? Right? Like, that sounds like childhood, where we didn't understand why our caregivers were withholding what we needed from us, and all we had control over was our own behavior. And so we thought if we just manipulated ourselves enough, they would give us what we want. And now we're just projecting that onto the daddy in the sky. That's not reality. So learning to validate that it's upsetting, that you feel desperate, that you're in pain, that it makes you feel hopeless, that it makes you freak out. Really learning to validate that stuff and to show up for yourself, and they're like, okay, I see you. And even if, like I say, you can't afford therapy, you can. I'm here right now, sitting here looking at you. If this is how you feel right now, I see you. You're valid. There's nothing wrong with you. It is not your fault that you don't have what you need. It is not your fault. You're not doing anything wrong. There may be something you can do to figure it out. There may be things that are going to happen for you where you're going to incrementally work your way towards what you need. It could be. It also could be that this might be a thing you don't have access to for a while. This might be a thing you don't have access to. Whatever the case, the bottom line, the main most important point, is that you are not alone. There is nothing wrong with you, and you're allowed to feel how you feel. You're allowed to be upset. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to be hopeless and spiral. Okay? There's nothing wrong with you. And if we make that emotional reaction safe, if we give ourselves the space to truly process through that, we discovered we have a need, and then we can't get it met. We need to give ourselves the container to process that. Because the emotional reaction to that is not going to just go away. We need to give ourselves time and space to process. And that's what these tools are all about. We grieve, we journal, we cry, we get angry, we get upset. We let ourselves have our emotions, and we just keep validating and showing up and giving compassion and giving love and giving support for as long as that emotional situation lasts. We make it safe. And it's probably going to last longer than we want it to. And we're going to think that we're wallowing, and we're going to be told by the spiritual community that we're indulging ourselves and that we're making it worse and that we're the reason we feel this way now because we could just change our mindset and we just got to be positive now and blah, 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 blah. But no, because here's the reality. At some point, when you make it safe enough to process your process, to process your feelings, you will naturally move to the next phase where you seek your empowerment. whatever empowerment you have within the situation, you will get to a point where you say, okay, I'm ready to look for where my power is. So I'm going to say that again. Give yourself permission to process your feelings, to be upset. Validate yourself. Even if the rest of the world doesn't, tells you to just be positive, tells you to just get over it, tells you you are wallowing, tells you you're staying stuck in negativity, you're the reason you're not manifesting it now because you're being negative, so the universe isn't going to give it to you, you're desperate, so you're not ever going to get what you want, you have to stop being so attached, you have to let it go, da, 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 da. The world is going to tell you all that bullshit. And I say bullshit for a reason, because it is. Let yourself feel how you feel. Continue to show up with compassion and curiosity. Because like I said, eventually, you do that long enough, eventually, that part of you is going to say, okay, I'm ready to accept the reality that I'm in. The need that I have, and the fact that I can't get it met right now, or that I can't get it met how I want to get it met. We're going to get to a place where we want to empower ourselves. Okay? So please trust me on that. When you make yourself safe and let yourself process, you will naturally, eventually arrive at a state where you're ready to deal with the situation in whatever way you can deal with it. Okay? And then you're going to find you're either going to have the ability to take a step towards creating what you need. So you're going to realize that you might not be able to get what you want and what you need fully right now. There may not be the perfect thing. There may not be access to exactly what you need or exactly what you want. But you are going to find that there's something in your reality, there's something you can do, there's something in your life where you can sort of get that same need met in just like a much decreased way, or not a perfect way, or not a complete way, but in some way. That there's something. There's like a 10% something. There's a something that meets it at least 5%. And you're going to be willing to say, okay, I know I can't have perfect right now, but there is a little bit of something that I can have, and I'm going to give that to myself. You're going to discover that there's something, some way you can work towards being able to have what you want. And sometimes this is going to be very hard. So again, like for me, chronically ill, lots of things I needed for a long time. I did not have the physical resources to have. I did not have the energetic resources to access. I didn't have the time, because just getting through my day and making enough money to survive with the limited education I had been given and the cost of living and all of these things, I didn't have time to rest. I didn't have time to go to a therapist. I didn't have money to spend on the supplements that I needed. I had to work. I had to do these things. And in order to get to this life that I have now, where I can do those things for myself, it was a long time of sacrifice and working hard and not being able. And I'm not one of these people that I was like, pull yourself up all your bootstraps and just work hard and everyone can get there at some point. What I am saying is that sometimes we're going to see for ourselves that in the short term, we sort of have to do something that's shitty, that's going to get us to a place where we can meet our needs a little bit better. And we're going to be strong enough to make that compromise. Okay, so again, this isn't pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just make it happen. It's when you have a genuine, okay, this is what I need, and I see that there are some steps that I can take to bring myself closer to that, even if those steps are hard, even if those steps are shitty, even though I don't want to have to take those steps, and I wish society wasn't set up this way, and it would be so much easier if things were better, and I want culture to be far more inclusive and far more, better for way more people and equitable and all of these things. Yes, valid, completely. Let's work towards that world. And sometimes we just have to realize we're going to have to do for ourselves what we're going to have to do right now. And that's why I say, you process your emotions. You validate yourself. You give yourself all the time and the space to be upset that you even have to do this. You completely validate that. And then, like I say, at some point, you will get to a place where you say, okay, and now my two choices are, I can stay where I'm at, or I can take the shitty steps that I have to take that will build towards a life that will be better. And it's going to feel like both of those options suck, and I validate that. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. It's not your fault. And if you choose to stay where you're at because taking the step is just too hard, that's okay. I validate you. I see you. We're not always going to be ready. We're not always going to be capable sometimes. And that's okay. That's not a weakness. That's not a flaw. We have to make it safe. Again, just continue to make yourself safe. Continue to validate yourself. Continue to say, this is just my life. I'm just going to do what it takes for myself that I can do in this moment. And where I can't, it's not my fault. I'm not a failure. It's not something I should do, and I now have to beat myself up that I couldn't do it. Sometimes we just can't do it. Sometimes we're just not ready. Sometimes we're just not strong enough. Sometimes the thing we're going to have to do, we just can't. And then we validate and comfort and love ourselves. And then maybe in a few weeks or a few months, we will feel strong again, and we'll be able to do it. Maybe someone will come along or something will change. And we have to understand that too, right? Like, reality is always changing. We're never actually stuck in a thing that we're stuck in forever, because life doesn't work like that. Everything is going to be a phase. Everything is going to be something that we go through, and then it changes. And we can't always predict life. And sometimes things really do just get better. So we have to just continue to validate ourselves in whatever we're in and continue to roll with the changes. And like I say, just continue to look for the empowerment that does exist. Even if that empowerment is just, I'm going to validate that I can't do anything about this right now, and I'm just going to be here for myself. And yes, that doesn't make it better. That doesn't take the pain away. That doesn't get the need met. But it's better than being in a situation where the pain is there and the need isn't being met and you're not loving yourself. Having compassion for yourself is never going to make it worse. Learning to love yourself in whatever you're in is never going to make the situation worse. There's always benefit in that. So again, when in doubt, when we don't know what to do, when we don't have any power, when it's literally, this is a situation out of my control, I cannot change it, it's societal, it's overwhelming, we return to compassion and curiosity for ourselves. I'm so sorry you have to go through this. This is not your fault. I love you. I'm going to be here with you no matter what. And we keep working that muscle. Because again, at the end of the day, knowing you have one person who's here for you all the time, who's never going to blame you, who's never going to shame you, who's never going to reject you, no matter what you're going through, you can return to a feeling of safety and compassion no matter what the world is doing for you. Again, it may not fix it. It may not make it better. But it makes it a million times better than when we feel abandoned by ourselves, when we feel dropped off the face of the cliff by ourselves, when we feel rejected by ourselves when we're in pain. So when we can't get our needs met, The first step is always validate that, process that, compassion for that. And then from wherever we are, we look for whatever kind of empowerment we can within it. Because like I said, sometimes we can take a little step. Sometimes there is a little bit of a transition we can make. Sometimes there are, okay, I can get to a place where I can get my needs met, but it's going to be hard and shitty, and I need to be really on my own side to make it through that. Sometimes it's going to be, there's just nothing I can do. I can't change it right now. So the one power I have is to be nice to myself. I can at least work the inner world and make myself safe with me. That this whole external thing might be horrible, and I can't change it, and I can't fix it, and I can't get my need met, and I don't know how I'm going to get my need met. But at least I'm going to have someone who's here with me, who's validating me, who's letting me experience my emotions, who's letting me process my emotions, who's here for me, who's a safe place for me. Unless and until something changes and I can get this from the outside, I can get a therapist, I can get help. Sometimes the next step is asking for help. Sometimes the next step is reaching out and saying, can someone support me even if I don't have resources to give right now? Like, there are going to be so many things that we are going to discover we can do that help us progress, but we have to be willing to make progress, like both sides, right? With the I don't even know what my need is, and the I do know what my need is, but I can't get it met. We have to be okay with slow and steady progress. We have to be okay with steps. We have to be okay with the next step is shitty, but it's going to get me somewhere I want to go. We have to be okay with can't get the need met fully right now, but I can sort of get it met, right? We have to be okay with little bits, and then we have to be okay with sometimes the answer is just all I have is more compassion and love for myself, because that's a reality. And how can I just make it safe to be with me in this right now? And then doing that process over and over and over again, right? It's not we process our emotions, we find our empowerment, then we fix it. It's going to be process emotions, find empowerment, take a step, process emotions, find empowerment, process emotions, find empowerment, process emotions, process emotions, process emotions, helplessness, can't figure it out, absolutely no step, feeling very stuck, process emotion, process emotion, process emotion, step doesn't work, process emotion, step sort of works, but I resent that I can only take a small step. Like, it's going to be that. And we have to be willing to ride through all of these phases of just compassion and curiosity. Where is my power? Where can I take a step? Where can I compromise? Where can I let the journey be the journey? Where can I ask for help? Where can I get my need met just a little bit? Where do I need to just surrender to this is just how it is right now, and this is how I feel about it? And we cycle through all of that over and over again. All the while just continuing to work that compassion and curiosity muscle, because that's the support that helps us see where we can make progress and what we can do. So it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be exactly what we want. It's never going to be the full answer. We just have to make room for the process and the processing and let go of all the new age bullshit that tells you that it's the reason you don't have what you need is because your own thoughts and that your emotions are the thing getting in the way. It's not true. Process your emotions. You will find your empowerment if it's there. You will. Eventually, you will get to a place where you either want to accept reality, you want to accept that it's okay, you figure out what your next step is, you feel ready to take that step when you weren't before, you see something you couldn't see before, and it's going to come because you had compassion. It's going to come because you had curiosity over and 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 over again. Not once or twice, not the first 10 times. Sometimes not for the 100th or 200th time, but it's worth it. Okay, so I hope that answered your questions. I hope that helps. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments and I'll answer. Other than that, I see you, I hear you, I validate you. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not doing anything wrong. Life is a journey. Life is complicated. You're not supposed to already know everything. You can figure stuff out. You can take steps. Life can get a little bit better. I promise. It's possible. Just little steps at a time. And we may never get to perfect, but progress feels good. Okay? So I see you, I love you, I validate you. I'll see you in the next. And really, really validating that society is set up in a way that some of us are not safe. Some of us do not get our needs met. Okay? You didn't manifest it. You didn't create it. It has nothing to do with you. People made decisions about how life was going to be so that some people would prosper and some people would suffer way before you were born. It is not your fault. Please do not let anyone gaslight you into saying that you're just disempowering yourself. No. And where you do have power, if you are kind to yourself and you have your compassion with yourself, you will figure out where that is, and then you will take those steps. Not because it's your responsibility and you shouldn't have to, but because you are worthy of a better life, and sometimes we just have to fight for it. So it's never your fault. No matter what, even if you're an addict, even if you're whatever, you were not trained how to meet your own needs. You were not trained how to identify what your needs are. Culture is not set up for that. Culture wants you to be a consumer and to feel inadequate all the time so that you're always primed to buy something, and that's basically the point of it. That is not your fault. The society that we have was set up on exploitation and slavery. The reason the rich are so rich is because they have exploited their way there. That's how our society was set up from the beginning. That is not your fault. We are all being crushed under the weight of it. So we need to have compassion. And we need to stop looking at ourselves forever. And we need to just say, okay, we're going to do what we can do. Collectively, individually, we're going to reach out, we're going to have community. We're not going to do this alone. We're not going to pretend things are okay when they're not. And we're going to slowly stop blaming ourselves, having compassion, and then looking for where our power is. Without telling ourselves it's our fault or that we created it, because we absolutely did not. Okay? I love you. You're good enough. You are worthy of having enough. Always. Let's work towards that. I see you. I validate you. If you can't have therapy right now, I see you and validate you. You're real. What you're going through is real. There's nothing wrong with you. I love you. Have a good week. I'll see you next week.